Welcome to WorkSpan TV. I'm Marcia Rhodes for WorldatWork. And today we're discussing employee communications. And with me is Tracy Kofski.
Hello.
Tracy, who are the key stakeholders when it comes to communications?
Well, when I'm talking about communications, I'm talking about communications of total rewards, so either compensation or benefits programs. And when we're planning them, we plan our key messages across kind of 4 general groups. We package together messaging and communication specifically for all the officers and directors of the company. Then secondly, we think about what our HR business partners need to know, or HR generalists as a second group. Third group is then managers of people. So what do managers of people need to know and understand and communicate to their employees? And then the fourth is the direct employee communication.
What are examples of communications within each of those groups?
If I think about benefits, for example, every year you have benefits open enrollment. And so before we go live with the all-employee communication, which you know what that would be, right? So when you get the message directly as an employee, it's time to enroll in your benefits. We start off with explaining to the officers and directors of our company, we remind them of our strategic principles behind our healthcare philosophy, and we talk to them at a high level about what's changing and why, within our principles and philosophies. And then actually in that communication, we skip managers of people because managers of people don't have a direct role within open enrollment communication. So we talk to officers and directors, we talk to our HR business partners, and we explain to them also what's changing and why, and we make sure they understand what deadlines there are, and then we go direct to employee. A different example would be within the compensation space. We call it our annual performance and rewards process, so some people think of that as the time of year where you do merit as well as performance evaluations. In that area, we do have all 4 levels and audiences that are communicated to. And we spend a lot of time with managers of people because we want to make sure that they understand how the rewards programs work and how to tie that to the performance management messaging that they give to employees and be able to kind of effectively communicate it all together.
Let's talk about line managers then. What types of tools do you find effective when coaching and communicating with line managers?
Well, the first thing we realized after kind of a lot of trial and error is our first thing we try to do is get our communication, messaging, and training to them as close as possible to the event when they need it. So again, in the annual performance and rewards process, we send to those managers of people a video interactive communication of what they need to do and why, kind of within a week of when they need to take the action. We find that that kind of grabs their attention and has them do what they need to do with the information. It's hard in the comp and benefits space to figure out how to always get stuff just when somebody needs it. But I think if it's not just when they need it, it gets stuck in that to read file. And I don't know how big your to read pile or stack is, but mine is pretty big. And a lot of that generally to read whenever I can doesn't ever get read.
Tracy, you mentioned needing to communicate with 4 different stakeholders. Do you have a program targeted at directors?
Well, we do. We specifically for newly promoted directors, we have a communications campaign that we've created to give to them when they're promoted to explain their compensation package or their total rewards package. Like many companies at General Mills, as you get more senior in the organization, your compensation opportunities grow, but they're also delivered in a more complicated way. And so while the boss, the person is telling them the great news about being promoted and everything about their new responsibilities, that manager of people isn't always able to explain directly all the intricacies of our compensation programs for directors. So a newly promoted person will get an email from me directly congratulating them as the head of Vice President of Compensation and Benefits on their promotion, and then it gives them about a 10-minute video that goes through the various components of their package that they can watch at their leisure to better understand each part. We've gotten really great feedback on it.
Tell us some lessons learned along the way.
Across all of communications, I'd say I'm a huge believer in communications. I would almost say, and this might be sacrilege to the compensation and benefits professionals out there, but I'd almost say that the communications are more important than the design of the program itself. And we've done a lot of things great. We've learned a lot of things along the way. I'd tell you 3 main things. First of all, to that comment about design and the communications, I would start early on communications. So what we've learned is if we get all of our design ready and then we wait to the end to write the communications, we often realize we would have designed some things differently had we thought about the communications in mind. We also know to really communicate effectively with today's technology, you need a lot of lead time. So I'd say one lesson is start early in the communications planning. The second thing is I'd encourage people to think about what needs to be private And so it's part of your competitive advantage. And what is something that you're communicating that it's okay if it's out in the public space? And so for us, what we've decided is most of our benefits, we don't think of them, while we think they're very important, we don't think they're driving specifically a competitive advantage with us with our talent, and we think it's okay for it to be outside of our firewalls. And so we have it on publicly available sites, and therefore people can watch or read information about their benefits in their home environment, where they may have a spouse, for example, who's the primary decision maker on benefits. So we keep that things outside of our firewall, so they're mobilely accessible, very easy. Things like compensation specifics, we feel differently about that, and that we keep kind of within our firewall, and we don't communicate it that way. So I encourage you to think about what can be public, what can be private, and then plan your technology that way. And the third one, I know we always say you can't overly communicate, and you talk about change management, and it says communicate the concept 8 times, 8 ways. I still believe you can't over communicate, but I think you can be too lengthy in your communications. And so what we're finding is, we're trying to get things into about 3 to 5 minute sound bites. And so rather than creating a communication, particularly a video or a brochure that goes on and on that somebody has to read from beginning to end, we've learned over the past year or so to try to create modules that are within that 3-minute spot, that if there's somebody who would be apt to watch the whole thing, they can. But for the vast majority of people that we can't keep their time and their attention span that long, that they can come in and out of the modules that they're most interested in about 3 to 5 minutes. And I think that gets us a lot more viewing time.
Tracy, these are great lessons learned. Thank you so much for sharing them with our viewers.
Thanks for having me.
For WorldatWork, I'm Marcia Rhodes.